My name's Wolf, and through this series of videos I'm going to introduce you to the crazy over-the-top world that nerds like me love so much, that is Warhammer 40,000. So get comfy, buckle in, and prepare for a Noob-Splaining session. Okay, so in my previous video I covered the history of the Imperium from present day Earth up to about the year 30,000, and the key inventions and events that helped shape the galaxy. Now the next 10,000 years of history are more character based than invention or event driven, so let's introduce you to some of those key figures, most of which are the Primarchs, who are the genetically engineered demigods meant to be a general for each of the Space Marine legions. So we're going to be working through the legion list to start with. Now I probably won't cover every Primarch here, some are fairly unremarkable when it comes to the current setting. I'm just going to cover the ones that I feel were the most integral to where 40k is today. Now, although each of the Primarchs and their respective legions are masters of pretty much every form of combat, each of the legion represents a particular style of warfare or prefers it. On top of that, each of the Primarchs has its own set of special skills, which sometimes get passed on to their genetic sons, the Space Marines. As you can imagine, some skills are more powerful and useful than others. Think of the power level difference between someone like Captain America or Thor compared to Hawkeye. I mean, which one would you put your money on? The Super Soldier, the God of Thunder, or the dickhead with a bow and some trick arrows? Sorry Hawkeye, I love you really. Now the first legion we're going to cover is, well, the first legion, the Dark Angels. At the time their armour was pure black, which is how they picked up the name Angels of Death, but these days they are more easily recognised by their dark green paint job. Later down the line as well, they also adopted a bone colour scheme for their Veterans and Terminator armour, which from a painter's point of view means you're not using the exact same colour scheme across your whole army, and is a refreshing break. But anyway, their Primarch is Lionel Johnson, whose special skills were primarily the fact that he is the greatest swordsman ever and a tactical genius. His people skills, however, were not great, and he sometimes fails to realise when people are making a joke. He's also recently developed a new ability of being able to teleport anywhere in the galaxy, which is pretty cool. Skipping a few legions, next we have the 6th Legion, the Space Wolves, and their Primarch Layman Russ. The Space Wolves wear grey armour with usually yellow shoulder pads. The Space Wolves have a very Space Viking feel, and outsiders see them as savage, almost animalistic warriors. The role of the Space Wolves and Laymen was to be the Emperor's executioners or enforcers. They were deliberately kept away from the other legions, and only went where the Emperor himself told them, and when they did go to war, they were renowned for unleashing brutal and vicious shock assaults on the enemy's forces, thus further cementing their reputation as savage, hyper-violent warriors. The wolves don't give a shit what others think about them, and although they are extremely savage, they are also very cunning and intelligent, and will deploy a savage assault that carefully planned and coordinated to do as much damage physically to a strategic target whilst causing massive morale damage to the remaining survivors, generally resulting in what is left capitulating out of fear. And no, I didn't name myself after the Space Wolves. I actually spell my name with a U, so it's W-U-L-F, but they are one of my favourite chapters. And no, I'm not Nordic, so now there's probably a few people thinking, why did I spell it with a U? Well, it's nothing to do with 40k, but if anyone does try and figure it out, pop it in the comments. Next we move on to the 7th Legion, the Imperial Fists, and their Primarch Rogel Dawn. Now their colour scheme is that of yellow armour with a red or black trim on the shoulder plates. Although Dawn is an absolute unit in combat, the Fists themselves specialise in siege warfare and are masters at building defences. It is said if a Fist builds a defence that you can beat, that's only because you were supposed to, but waste so much of your forces in the process, there is next to nothing left for the Fist to mop up. They are all portrayed as stoic and honourable and by the book, and frankly fucking boring as hell. If any legion that plays defence can be called the immovable object, it's these boring buggers. They are more boring than 15 accountants giving a 6-hour lecture explaining the finer details of Tax Code 37 and how it affects any small business near you. It is rumoured that when they build a sandcastle, the tide can't wash it away. Now, moving on before Kevin from accounts starts to get all excited about Tax Code 37, we have the 9th Legion, the Blood Angels, and their Primarch Sanguinius. They have adopted red as their colour scheme because, well, blood angels, but Sanguinius himself wears gold because he's a flash kit, and also he has wings like an actual angel. Considered to be one of the best fighters out of all the Primarchs, Sanguinius can pretty much use every melee weapon to make your insides no longer on the inside. The Blood Angels, though a powerful force on the field, are the space vampires as the name suggests. They secretly love drinking blood, and being smothered in it is also part of the process of becoming a Blood Angel. Next up is the 12th Legion, the World Eaters, and their Primarch Angron. Their colour scheme was white and blue, but they opted for red after realising it's a lot easier to not keep washing their arm. Now Angron's special skills is being so angry, even the Hulk thinks he needs to chill out a little bit, and his Space Marines are no different. Whereas the Space Wolves will violently butcher a portion of any army to force a surrender, the World Eaters will just butcher everyone and everything. Military personnel or civilian, they don't care. Other legions think the Space Wolves are savage, but everyone knows the World Eaters are fucking brutal berserkers who love chain weapons, mainly chain axes, as they make more of a mess than a chainsword. Finally, the poster boys of 40k, the 13th Legion, the Ultramarines, and their Primarch Roboute Guilliman, all dressed in that nice shiny blue armour that it feels like you see fucking everywhere. I don't think there is a shop anywhere that stocks 40k stuff that doesn't have that giant cutout of the big blue Primaris Marine in its window. And just like all Space Marines, they are experts at every kind of warfare. But the Ultramarines' special skills is to make battle plans for pretty much every scenario ever, like some form of OCD that you've got to collect everything, and also their ability to micromanage supplies and logistics. The good thing about going to war alongside the Ultramarines is that you're never going to run out of anything. The downside is they are nearly as boring as the Fists. Whereas the Fists build sandcastles in their spare time, the Ultramarines have gigantic model railways just to practice micromanaging timetables. Allegedly. Due to their logistical prowess, they are the biggest legion and cover over 500 worlds. It's a lot easier to recruit and train Space Marines if you have the resources in place to do it. The 14th Legion is the Death Guard, and they are led by their Primarch Mortarion. Now the Death Guard didn't have a colour scheme as such, because they just left their armour the same colour it was when it rolled off the production line. The Death Guard, you see, are not looking for awards, medals or commendations, or any of the other shit that some soldiers seem to crave. You see, the Death Guard's special skill is they're just here to get shit done and move on. And get shit done they do. Considered one of the finest legions of warfare, when they go to war, many other legions are impressed with how professional and effective they were, and were equally surprised to find that instead of celebrating after a great victory, they would just pack up their shit and move on like they were paid for each victory and not by the hour. They also have the special skill of being damn near immune to every poison you can think of, well beyond the known resistance levels of other Space Marines. The 15th Legion, the Thousand Sons, are led by Magnus the Red. Now, all decked out in blue and gold, the Thousand Sons are basically the Space Egyptians. Their special skill is that most of them, if not all of them, are psychers of varying power levels. So as well as using bolters and chainswords, they also have the option of shooting lightning or fireballs at you just to make sure they really do ruin your day. Whilst a bit low in size compared to some other legions, at one point there was only 1,000 of them, hence the name, the fact that they can employ all those psychic abilities with ease makes them a force to be reckoned with. Magnus himself is that powerful a psyker it is said his mastery of the warp-based powers is second only to that of the Emperor himself. The penultimate legion in my list of notable legions is the Sons of Horus, led by Horus Lupercal. They chose a nice shade of green for their armour. Actually, it's not nice, it's bloody horrible and looks like baby vomit. However, Horus' special skills were that of being both the greatest military tactician and one hell of a diplomat. He could negotiate a world into compliance or just straight up conquer it. I'm actually going to mention a notable Space Marine here, namely the first captain of the Legion, Ezekiel Abaddon. Now, if that's not the worst attempt at foreshadowing, I don't know what is. I mean, his name is literally Abaddon. And for our final legion, it is the 17th Legion, the Wordbearers, led by Lorgar Aurelian. Whereas most of the Primarchs really love their gene father, the Emperor, Lorgar and his Marines worship the Emperor as an actual god. Now this doesn't sit too well with the Emperor, as he is actively dismantling all religions in the galaxy, trying to make humanity 100% agnostic. Meanwhile, Lorgar and two of his most trusted Space Marines, Corferon and Erebus, are actively spreading the word of the God Emperor as a religion, hence the name Wordbearers. Let's hope this doesn't cause problems further down the line, shall we? Spoiler alert, this is 40k, and everything that can go to rat shit will go to rat shit at every possible chance. And there we have the most prominent legions and their Primarchs. There is one other person that needs to be mentioned at this point who I feel is also instrumental in the state of the 40k galaxy currently, and this is Belisarius Cull, who around the year 30,000 is just a low-ranking but up-and-coming tech priest from the Mechanicum of Mars. Seriously, his last personnel report from his supervisors stated, "One to watch, will go places." So that's all the main characters you'll need to know about for when I do the part 2 history video to make sense, which will be taking us from the year 30,000 to the current setting of the 40k universe. But if you really do want to know about all the other legions, then keep watching. So the 3rd Legion is the Emperor's Children, led by Fulgrim, who wear all purple. Their special skill is they strive for perfection in absolutely everything, but especially warfare, which also makes them a bit cocky, to the point they celebrate victory before actually going to war. They also have difficulty walking past mirrors without stopping to admire themselves. The 4th Legion are the Iron Warriors, led by Perturabo, and their special skill is being not quite as good at siege warfare as the Imperial Fists are, and also being very bitter about the fact. The 5th Legion are the White Scars, led by Jagatai Khan, and are easily spotted as they wear white armour, a bit like stormtroopers. Now they are loosely based on Genghis Khan and his Mongolian armies of the day, but they are also speed freaks, with a love for anything with 2 wheels that goes really fast. The 8th Legion are the Night Lords, led by Conrad Kurz. Decked out in a tasteful metallic blue armour, they specialise in terror tactics, and prefer to murder people from the shadows. Conrad himself is the evil version of Batman, or at least he thinks he is. The 10th Legion are the Iron Hands and are led by Ferris Manus. They wear dark grey, almost black armour trimmed in iron. They are renowned for their remorseless, cold-hearted, iron-like disposition, and their special skill is their obsession with replacing their limbs with cybernetics, as they believe that the flesh is weak and prone to corruption, but the bionics are pure. The 18th Legion are the Salamanders, led by Vulcan. Now the Salamanders are by far the most humane legion when not at war, and love nothing more than helping the local humans every way possible in return for hugs. When they do go to war, they tend to use lots of heat-based weapons, and enjoy nothing more than a good old perching by fire. Their Marines will even spend time with the local Imperial Army garrisons, helping to train them, which is akin to sending the Navy SEALs to teach kindergarten kids how to swim. How was your lesson today, darling? Excellent, Mother. Master Sergeant Johnson showed us the correct way to place demolition charges on a boardwalk, and next week he's teaching us how to use a combat knife while fully submerged. Next up is the 19th Legion, the Raven Guard, who are led by Corvus Corax. They wear black and specialise in stealth operations and hit-and-run tactics. Corvus can also become invisible when in shadows, and some of his Space Marines can do the same. They are most famous for having the Mark 6 power armour named after them, which is that version with the conical faceplate on the helmet that looks like a beak. Because, well, they're the Raven Guard. That beak contains extra sensor systems, but the fact it was designed to look like a bird of prey and then given to the Raven Guard to test was definitely not a coincidence. Finally, we have the 20th Legion, the Alpha Legion, who are led by the identical twin Primarchs Alpharius and Omegon. As the same amount of resources that was used to make a singular Primarch was used to make the twins, they are the smallest of all the Primarchs, and each one of them can pass as an actual Space Marine. Alpharius also has the ability to blend into crowds, which means Omegon probably does as well, which means the Marines probably do as well. Now the Alpha Legions are the spies of the Legions, to the point that they have had Alpha Marines infiltrate every Legion at some point and probably still have. They use all kinds of spy, stealth and cunning tactics that you can think of, and even more that you can't. Many of the worlds that fell to the Alpha Legion during the Compliance Wars didn't even realise the Alpha Legion was there, let alone brought their government down. They have the annoying habit of letting every Marine in the Legion pretend they are the Primarch for the day. Many of the Legionnaires also get surgery to look even more like the Primarchs, making it even more impossible to tell if you're talking to the actual Alpharius, his twin brother Omegon, or Bob the fucking janitor. And finally, for those astute ones amongst us, there are 2 legions that I haven't mentioned. That's the 2nd and 11th Legions. Now that's because officially we don't know anything about these legions. What we do know is mainly rumours. The rumours being that the Space Marines of those legions were folded into the Ultramarines Legion, explaining partially why the Ultramarines are so fucking big when they really only get a hard-on for train timetables. The 2 missing Primarchs are known as the Persian and the Forgotten. An oath was sworn by all the Primarchs to never speak the names of their 2 lost brothers, and I can't help but feel some of the Emperor's psychic powers are also in play to enforce this oath. One of the rumours is that both Primarchs were killed by Laban Russ, the Primarch of the Space Wolves and the Emperor's executioner, at the Emperor's command. Another rumour is that Russ killed the 2nd Primarch, as he was commanded to, but the 11th is being held prisoner deep in the prisons beneath the Emperor's palace. To back up that particular rumour, we do know that in one of those prisons is a being simply referred to as the 11th. To further strengthen that, the Emperor did not look upon his Primarch sons as sons, but more like they were tools of war to be used. This is because on multiple occasions he referred to Angron, the Primarch of the 12th Legion, as the 12th, rather than by his name. Now the original reason, back when 40k was released for the 2 missing Primarchs, was because back then, and even to this day, Games Workshop heavily wants players to create their own factions within factions. in this case with missing Primarchs and Legions. You have the option of creating your own Legion and faction with your own choice of special skills and backstory and whatever paint job you wanted. As time went on, both in the game and in real world, as the lore grew and expanded, it became blaringly obvious that this mechanic for making your own Legion or chapter of Space Marines was pointless and redundant, which I'll explain how in my Mankind's History video part 2. So that's enough for today. And there we have it. Don't forget to like, subscribe and leave a comment. Better still, if you know somebody who could do with a bit of noob-splaining on Warhammer, and share this video with them. And at any point, if you learned something or laughed, then please hit that subscribe button. I won't ever be doing a Patreon or a merch store, so that subscribe button is the best way you can show your support and thanks from me.